This is the Listening Books Podcast, for every kind of reader, and especially for fans of audiobooks. I'm Jessica Stone, and this is a special episode with my colleagues Amy and Edward as we talk about the books we're most excited to read in these warm, languid days of summer. Stick around for the literary game and outrageous injustice. I'm so excited to hear what you've got lined up. Edward, why don't you go first? What's on your reading list this summer?
So first on my list is Remains of the Day by Kazuo Ishiguro. He's one of those authors that, obviously he's very famous. He won the Nobel Prize. I think he won the Booker Prize and stuff. And this is a book that I think is very much in recent cultural memory. But I've never read him. And I watched recently an Imagine documentary on the BBC about him, which detailed his life and career. And it was so interesting that he came off very, very well in it. Just a very kind, but also really sort of razor sharp intelligence. And the way he talks about the remains of the day, I'd always assumed it was just this kind of quite boring period book. But the way he talks about it in terms of, politics and how we relate to people in positions of political power was like really, really interesting. I wouldn't want to ruin it. I would recommend people go watch that documentary. And I had lots of interesting facts about him, this documentary. I didn't know he was born in Nagasaki just after the atomic bomb had dropped, nor that he tried to make it as a singer-songwriter in America before becoming a novelist, which he speaks about with a lot of candid humor. But his books seem to have this very subtle and quiet kind of tone to them, which maybe means that maybe in some ways they don't get read as much as other books, but everything about it seems really, really appealing. The one last detail about his life, I found out also that he used to live in the same part of London that I currently live in now. And while he was writing The Remains of the Day in this particular part of London, to take a break, he would go walk down the high street, and he would find the slope of the high street so amusing that he would just walk down it laughing out loud, kind of like he was mad. So that's just another detail that made me want to read this book. It's also it's in our library, and it's read by Dominic West, who is a really great actor, and he's got a sort of very craggy and appealing voice. So that would be my first choice.
Remains of the Day is actually I think it's probably one of my favorite books, and it's probably one of the only times where I listened to the audiobook first, actually read by Dominic West, and he is really, really good. He's a really good narrator. And then quite soon after that, I actually went back and read the actual book, which I never normally do because I don't get very much time to read, so I don't really read the same book twice in a period of a few months. But yeah, I thought it was really good, and I think Ishiguro's life, as somebody who grew up outside of the UK and then came to live here, he's really good at observing English culture as being part of it, but then also not being outside of it as well. And I've just read his latest book, actually, Clara and the Sun, and that was really good. And in the same way, it's got a main character that is sort of different to everybody else, and observing them and observing kind of human relationships and stuff. It's really good. Yeah,
definitely. Yeah. So my second choice is The Secret History by Donna Tartt. This is a book I've heard so many people I know love this book, and a lot of people also read it on holiday as well, which is convenient because I'm going on holiday this year for the first time in a few years after the pandemic, so looking for things to read there. And also it's one of those books that a number of people have told me that they read as teenagers and really loved as teenagers. And I think that's a category of book that always really appeals to me to try and read when you're a grown-up, which I think I can say I am now that I'm in my 30s. The Secret History, we have it in the library. It's a kind of it's not so much a whodunit, apparently, as a whydunit. The crime is kind of explained, and who did it is explained right at the top, but it kind of unpacks all the relationships and everything that happened among the characters that went into this particular murder or tragic death occurring. So yeah, it's got a bit of that kind of genre fiction feel to it. And also Donna Tartt, she just talked about how Dickens is her favourite novelist and stuff. And so I think that would be a really great thing to read on holiday, something big and Dickensian with lots of characters. So that will be maybe the book I'm reading while I'm sort of lounging on a sun chair somewhere. I hope that's what I'm doing.
That sounds great. I highly... So I'm just going to interject here and say that we are all doing our best here with a pretty significant delay. So all of us want to say something about this book right now, and rather than it flowing as naturally as one might want, we're all having to put our hands up, and it's like a pick me. I wanted to jump in here and say, Edward, you are going to have so much fun reading that book. I'm really jealous that you're going on holiday. And I love the way that you described it as a why done it rather than a who done it. I think that's the perfect way to describe it. And it's a book I have frequently given and recommended, especially to younger people in my life, the ones in university in particular. I think it really resonates for that age group, but it's fun for anybody, honestly. And I just had the pleasure recently of watching a nephew encounter this book for the first time and could not be kept away from it. It's so fun to see somebody so completely absorbed. It's that kind of book where even though, okay, you might have to do some other things, you might have to socialize with other people, but in the back of your mind, you really just want to get back to that book. And it was really lovely to see him that enthusiastic and be that enraptured by a book. So can't wait to hear after you've read that. And then, Amy, you had your hand up as well, so I'm going to let you talk too.
Yeah, this is, unfortunately, we can't, because the delay is quite significant for some reason this time. We can't just chip in and chat naturally, which is a bit of a shame. It's going to sound a little bit like we've got all our comments lined up one after the other. But yeah, I'm actually currently reading this book for the first time. So it's just a bit of a coincidence that Edward chose probably one of my favorite books, and then he chose the book I'm reading right now. And it's funny, I probably wouldn't have liked this as a teenager. I can imagine it would have been a bit heavy for me. And I am enjoying it. I have had to just take a break from it though, not because it's not enjoyable, it is, but I suppose I can't really say too much about it really. I don't want to give anything away, even though, as you say, Edward, everything it's kind of described at the beginning, like what's happened to this person and who did it. But I totally get what you mean about it being Dickensian. Like there's lots of characters that are all kind of intertwined and everything, and it is an interesting one. I have some problems with the female characters in it, but I might not go into that now. We've not got time.
I don't even remember the female characters.
Exactly, Jess. Exactly. Not got time to go into that right now.
Thank you both. Yeah, it's just made me want to read it even more. Female characters notwithstanding. My third and final choice for my summer reading is The Magic Mountain by Thomas Mann. This is a German classic from the 1920s. I think that's when he wrote it or published it. I've been on a real Thomas Mann kick recently, if that's what you can call it. I read Buddenbrooks, which was the first book that he wrote, which is a family saga about a German merchant family, which was really amazing. It's possibly the most boring and most exciting book I've ever read. And I don't really know how to resolve that paradox in my head. Very little happens, and yet it's incredibly gripping. And I've never really read anything like it. The Magic Mountain sounds quite similar in that it's about a man who travels to visit an old friend of his in a Swiss sanatorium who's resting there, recovering from an illness. And instead of staying for 2 weeks, he ends up staying for 7 years. And basically the book is all about these people recuperating from illnesses in the Swiss Alps, lounging around in giant fur blankets, having very long conversations about the state of the world while war kind of rumbles in the background. So it sounds like the kind of perfect holiday reading for me, because I always have an idea that I'm going to read something very long, very slow, very dense, basically something I wouldn't have time to read otherwise in my ordinary life. I also think my one last point, I also think if we're thinking about holidays, I think Thomas Mann is the ultimate writer of holidays. I think particularly in Death in Venice and Mario and the Magician, which are two shorter novels that he wrote. Everyone thinks Death in Venice is the tragedy of Death in Venice is, about illicit desire or about mortality or aging and things like that. Whereas actually, I think it sums up the ultimate Northern European middle-class nightmare, which is a bad Italian holiday. So I think for me, that's just would make a really good bit of holiday reading.
That sounds fantastic. Amy, what about you?
I think I don't usually change what I read or listen to depending on the season or whether I'm on holiday. And I don't really think about holiday reads as such. I just kind of take whatever book is next on my list. But I think I might actually change that now and think a bit more about it, because last year I listened to an audiobook when I was on holiday and it was a bit depressing. And I won't say what book it was because I don't want to put people off listening to it, because it was good, but it maybe wasn't the right thing to listen to on holiday. It was about a woman getting over the death of someone she was having an affair with. So it was a bit dark and complicated, and it kind of was a bit at odds with my fun, sunny surroundings. So I've had to look at my actual wish list, and there's quite a lot of non-fiction on there, actually. I want to read or listen to Dead Famous by Greg Jenner. He is a historian and writer. I don't know if you've ever listened to the podcast You're Dead to Me. It's like a comedy history podcast. And I think this book is kind of in the same vein. It's sort of like an insight into the history of celebrities. And I think it might be a fun one for a holiday read or listen. And he narrates it as well. And he's got quite a fun, enthusiastic, chirpy voice. So I think that might be a good one to listen to. Also, another one I've got on my list is To the Greatest Heights by Vanessa O'Brien. And I'm not really one for sports like climbing or anything that sort of energetic, but I thought this sounded quite inspirational, actually. So the author, she was made redundant in her mid-40s and she moved to Hong Kong when her husband got a job out there. And she just was very bored of being a housewife. So she decided to climb Everest, as you do. And she's climbed lots of other mountains since then. And the blurb says, to listen to the greatest heights is to know that there is a path to overcoming the worst of what happens to us and a path that helps us reach the summit of our lives to whatever our age. So I thought maybe a book like that might encourage me to do something productive. I mean, I'm probably not going to climb Everest, but I don't know. Maybe if I listen to it on a holiday, it might encourage me to go on an excursion or something.
I might go on a picnic.
Yes, exactly. Yeah. Have a little walk around a nice garden or something. That's about as energetic as I get. To move on to fiction, I'd quite like to read Queenie by Candice Carty-Williams. It's about a young woman who's struggling to fit in with her family and her jobs and relationships. And it's described as darkly comic. So hopefully it'll be something quite fun to listen to in the summer or on holiday. And it sounds like something that'd be quite up my street as well. So
Darkly comic has your name written all over it, crafted especially for you.
Exactly. So another book I thought looked quite good was I'll Be You by Janelle Brown. It sounds very intriguing, actually. It's about a pair of twins who used to be childhood stars and they've now grown apart. And then one of them, who sort of appears to have the perfect life, disappears. So I think that sounds quite intriguing. I don't normally read that many mysteries, but I think that might be a good one to get stuck into. What are you looking forward to reading, Jess?
Ooh, well, I do like to read seasonally now, I have to say. I like there to be a congruence or parallel of some sort between either the time of year or the place that I'm in, or even better, both, if I can manage it. So ideally, if I'm going to Rome in the summer, which unfortunately I'm not, my ideal read would be something set in Rome in the summer, which can get pretty niche, actually. So I usually settle for just one or the other. Traditionally, I think a summer read is usually considered lighter reading, maybe genre fiction, and I dig that. But it's tricky because if I'm on holiday, I don't necessarily want a page turner because it's too easy to get absorbed into the book. A bit like I was saying about my nephew-in-law reading The Secret History, where even though you have to kind of engage with other people, you really just want to be back with the book. And so if I'm really invested in how a story is turning out, it can be a bit like, my partner pointing out some amazing scenery or archaeological site, and I'm like, shh, stop bothering me. I need to finish this book, which isn't great because if you're going on holiday, you really do want to appreciate the holiday that you're on. But we don't appear to be going on holiday necessarily this summer, but home has recently changed from England back to Ireland now. And so looking over my summer reading list, I can see that has definitely been an influence in my choices. So the first book I added to my list, I added when I was looking over the new books that were being added to the Listening Books library. And I saw that Graham Norton's Home Stretch is on there. And I realized I've never actually read any of his novels. And he has two others, I believe, 2 or 3 others. I think I'll read at least one of them. And then depending on how much I enjoy it, I might just go ahead and read all of them. But that seems like some nice kind of light summer reading. And then there's a book that I've been meaning to get around to. That's Colm Toibín's The Master, which is a fictionalized account of the writer Henry James. Now, he, of course, was an American writer, much admired, still very much admired, who made his home in England. And in fact, I believe he became a British citizen shortly before his death. He loved living in England. And I used to volunteer actually at the National Trust property that was his summer house, and where he wrote some of his novels. So I feel like there's that bit of connection there. And I've been meaning to read this book. It's sort of been on the back burner for a while, and like it, because Colm Toibín he seems to be taking other writers as muses in a sense lately. So he's also got The Magician, which actually is about Thomas Mann. So we seem to be all somehow on a similar wavelength today with our books. They seem to connect to each other in some way. Oh yes, okay. Finally, this year is the centenary of the publishing of James Joyce's Ulysses, and since I've never made it past the first 300 or so pages, I thought this year might be a good time to revisit it. It's got a reputation for being fairly challenging, but here's my plan. Because it's the 100th anniversary, there's lots of things being done about it and around it in Dublin, where it's set, and in Paris, where it was published, and even in a couple of other places like New York. But the little bookshop in Paris, Shakespeare and Company, which published Ulysses when it was first published, have created a podcast especially for this, where they have invited a number of different celebrities and authors, actors, to read through Ulysses. So they've all been given different sections to read. And so you've got like Eddie Izzard reading some of it, and Margaret Atwood, and a bunch of other names that I can't remember off the top of my head. But basically the whole book is being read on this podcast. And then they've got other episodes where they're discussing each episode, because, it's technically episodes rather than chapters in Ulysses. So I think that's my plan, is to try to listen to it that way. But I'm kind of hoping, even if I don't read the whole thing this time around, maybe just one more episode to add to my, I'll just slowly, year by year, read just a little bit more of Ulysses, and eventually I'll be able to say I've read it. That's all I've put on my list, as I want to leave some room for spontaneity too. And with that, it is time for our game. Are you ready, Amy and Edward, to play whatever nefarious game I've got in mind?
Yes.
Yeah, I am. I'm all aboard for the nefarious game.
Well, as per usual, we do not have an actual buzzer for either of you. And so I've thought hard about what sort of summer sounds I can give you to buzz in with. So, Amy, you're going to be a bee buzzing in the garden.
Okay.
So you're going to literally buzz in with bzzz.
Yeah. Bzzz. I can do that.
Can you handle that?
Yeah, as we've said, there might be a delay on the buzz.
Actually, visually, I might have you hold up your hands as well. I don't know if there's a delay on the video, but you can buzz in while you hold your hand up, and hopefully that'll help me see who's really chiming in first. And then, Edward, I'm going to give you a choice of sounds, okay? You can either be a pond frog and ribbit ribbit, or you can imitate a crashing wave in a sort of whoosh kind of sound. So what would you prefer?
I think my soul animal is probably a pond frog, so I'll go with the ribbit ribbit sound. Thank you.
I am delighted with that choice. Wonderful. Okay, well, we are leaning hard into the summer theme here. So what I've done is picked several classic books that are memorably set in the summertime. And I've chosen excerpts from each one that give a summary description, a description of summer. And I want you to buzz in as soon as you think you know what the book is. Some of them might be a little difficult, and so I will continue to give hints until I see someone or hear someone ready to answer. Okay?
Yep.
All right. Here's your first summary description. And never, since the middle summer's spring, met we on hill, in dale, forest or mead, by paved fountain or by rushy brook, or in the beached margent of the sea, to dance our ringlets to the whistling wind, but with thy brawls thou hast disturbed our sport.
Ribbit ribbit.
Yes, Edward.
I think that's A Midsummer Night's Dream by Shakespeare.
Oh, man, I was going to say that.
You're absolutely correct.
Fantastic. Thank you.
Well, Amy, unless you were on a much bigger delay than Edward, he did get there first.
Oh, man.
So that point goes to Edward.
Yeah, on my screen, it looked like we said it at the same time, but I mean, it's just going to have to go by Jess's rules.
Sorry.
It's all right. It's just a guess anyway. I didn't actually know. I've never read it or seen it, so I don't deserve the point.
Okay, well, Amy, maybe the delay will be in your favor with the second question. Okay, so number 2, here's your description. Summer was on the way. Gemini awaited it with impatience.
Buzz.
Yes?
To Kill a Mockingbird by
Harper Lee.
Yes, yeah, that's it. That's it, Harper Lee. I didn't need to know the author. Yeah.
Yes, exactly. Well done. I'm going to finish the description just because I think it's so lovely, so you can hear it, but you absolutely got that point. Summer was our best season. It was sleeping on the back screen porch in cots or trying to sleep in the treehouse. Summer was everything good to eat. It was 1,000 colors in a parched landscape, but most of all, summer was dill. I really loved that description, which does capture the magic of summer, especially when you're a child, I think. Okay, on to number 3. There was a wooden walk that led half across the beach, which Tom knew must be hot as hell to walk on because everybody was lying on a towel or something else. But he took his shoes off anyway and stood for a moment on the hot wood, calmly surveying the groups of people near him. None of the people looked like Richard, and the shimmering heat waves kept him from making out the people very far away. Tom put one foot out on the sand and drew it back. Then he took a deep breath, raced down the rest of the walk, sprinted across the sand, and sank his feet into the blissfully cool inches of water at the sea's edge. And I can see that this one is a bit more difficult. It's perhaps not giving as much away, but the fact that the main character is Tom is a pretty big clue. And As you're still thinking, I'm going to give you the author as well and the genre. So this is a thriller by Patricia Highsmith.
Oh, Buzz.
Ribbit, ribbit.
I think Edward got there first.
Oh, man.
Unless the delay hit us again. Go on, Edward.
Is it The Talented Mr. Ripley by Patricia Highsmith?
It is The Talented Mr. Ripley by Patricia Highsmith. Well done. All right, Amy. Let's see if you can. I do have more than 3, so if you tie here, we can keep going. The crickets felt it was their duty to warn everybody that summertime cannot last forever. Even on the most beautiful days in the whole year, the days when summer is changing into autumn, the crickets spread the rumor of sadness and change. And I reckon you might need some hints for this one. So I'll say first, this is a children's book, a sad one, as you might have deduced, by E.B. White.
Buzz?
Amy?
Is it Charlotte's Web?
Yes. Well done. Oh, I'm so pleased. It's neck and neck. We've got a tie now.
Oh my God.
It is tied, isn't it? Haven't you? You've both done 2, right?
I think so. Yeah.
All right, here is the last one. And so, with the sunshine and the great bursts of leaves growing on the trees, just as things grow in fast movies, I had that familiar conviction that life was beginning over again with the summer. And this one is set in the 1920s. It's sort of known for the Art Deco lavish style.
Buzz?
Ribbit.
Yes, Edward.
Well, I'm gonna say I can guess the author quite easily, which is probably F. Scott Fitzgerald.
Yes.
And I'm gonna just take a lunge and say it's the most famous book he wrote, which is The Great Gatsby.
Yes, Edward. Well done.
Well done, Edward.
And I'm so pleased for you because I remember last time.
Yeah, you might call it victory. I call it revenge. So,
yeah, as I recall, the last time Amy won pretty handily, actually. So this is some vindication for Edward. I'm really delighted. Keen-eared listeners will have noted that Amy was indeed robbed of victory by the delay we were experiencing over the internet. I can report that although she was prepared to lose graciously, she wasted no time crowing about her victory once revealed. Edward, meanwhile, is looking forward to a rematch soon. This was a special summer episode, but the podcast will be back for a new series in September. So if you haven't already, hit that subscribe button to get every episode as soon as it's released. It's free to subscribe. The Listening Books podcast is produced by Listening Books, a UK charity that provides an audiobook lending service for over 115,000 members who find that an illness, mental health, physical or learning disability affects their ability to read the printed word or hold a book. It's simple to join. For more information, head to our website, www.listening-books.org.uk.
Buzz.
Ribbit, ribbit.
Buzz. Oh, Buzz.
And
Ribbit, ribbit.
I believe. I think Edward got there first, unless the delay.
Buzz.
Summer was our best season.
Buzz.
It was sleeping on the back screen porch in cots. Or yes,
Yes,
Amy.
To Kill a Mockingbird by
Amy.
yeah. I'm saying
Yes!
it.